Tim Pool and his guest Hotep Jesus, who I had no idea anything about him until I saw him on Tim Pool ripping into Kenny Owens and using reason, logic, and rationale, which is something that most people choose not to do nowadays. I was like, well, I need to do some research into this guy. Turns out he's been on Joe Rogan, and turns out that he's actually quite intelligent. So I'm like, great. If anyone is criticizing Kenny Owens, it's because they've actually got a brain on them. They're just using what God gave them, their brain, to think about all the stuff that Kenny Owens has been saying and realizing, well, none of it adds up. None of it makes sense. And if we use her very own logic, it's quite interesting. Who has been the one that has benefited the most from the Charlie Kirk assassination? It's been obviously Kenny Owens. Now, I want to show you a couple of clips. There's several of them from the conversation, and I thank the person over on X for saying, Jay, you need to check this out. It's like over 45 minutes of them going through pretty much the whole Kenny Owens accusation or allegations that supposedly or allegedly, because we've got to say that nowadays, right? Allegedly, France and Israel have teamed up and they're paid for, Emmanuel Macron paid for $1.5 million, a very specific number, ladies and gentlemen. And there is a French woman and a male Israeli assassin. They were both paid and they're both taken a break over the holiday, as it would seem. They're both taking Thanksgiving off, ladies and gentlemen, because Candy Owens' show is not airing this week. She's supposed to be in hiding. But nevertheless, the assassins have taken time off to have Thanksgiving abroad, as it would seem. But no, Candy has made this crazy claim that her life is in jeopardy and under threat from the French government and the Israeli government, and also Charlie Kirk's assassin was part of the 13th French Legionary Brigade, that whole thing. So guess who's the one that has benefited the most from Charlie Kirk assassination? It's been Candace. So by Candace's very own logic, why don't we look into her? Why don't we have a look and see whether or not she's responsible for killing Charlie Kirk? Because she's looking into or reading into what happened to Charlie Kirk and accusing all these other people. But why can't we criticize, or why can't we look into her? Why can't we start asking questions about her? Oh, no, don't ask the arbiter of truth, guys. Don't ask her. Forget about asking Candy Owens, because she's in the right about everything, even though all of the stuff she's been saying is totally outlandish and totally crazy. Anyway, have a watch of Tim Pool and Hotep Jesus talking about Candy's logic. Have a watch.
No, but I brought this up last night. How come nobody is asking whether or not she's involved?
She's a suspect.
But hold on, like honest question. I don't know about suspect in Charlie's murder, but isn't it strange that she's not being censored by YouTube, despite as critical of Israel as she is, or Spotify or Apple, and that her own lawyers work out of the same building as the feds?
Yeah.
How come no one's talking about that? And that's an honest question. I'm not trying to make you assume anything. I'm saying for somebody who claims that you can't criticize Israel, she also brags she has the #1 podcast worldwide. She's propped up on YouTube with millions of views and the other podcast platforms with no takedown. Nick Fuentes is banned across the board. And then she accidentally points out that her own lawyers are registered at the same address as the feds. She had a response to this, that it was just a registered agent?
Well, no, that's what the internet sleuths. The internet sleuths said that, they pulled the address from the Macron case, and apparently that her attorney's office has a registered agent at that address, which happens to be the same address as the feds, right? FBI and other high-level intelligence agencies, et cetera, right? But we got to zoom out and use Candace's logic. If you're using Candace's logic, who's benefited the most from Charlie Kirk's assassination? It's been Candace.
Her show's #1.
Her show's #1. TPUSA is in just utter dismay at this moment. So TPUSA has to be taken off the table as a suspect, and we have to look at Candace, because all she's done was, and this is messed up too, because if you were like really friends, like you toured the country with this guy, if you were really friends, and you're using his assassination for your own benefit and monetizing it. Like, we just lost a great guy, Daniel Naroditsky in the chess world, right? And most of the chess guys, when they covered Daniel, they took the monetization, either turned it off on a video or donated it to Daniel's fund.
Respect.
Right? That's out of respect. She's not doing that. She's not taking the money.
How is she monetized?
Sponsors or YouTube? I don't know.
No, but she's got YouTube ads and like mainstream normal sponsors.
Right.
I gotta say, dude, I remember
to share that.
You shouldn't got to do anything. I'm not going to make that argument. I'm just wondering why it is that Nick Fuentes got deleted from Spotify and she's propped up and YouTube blasts her out to everybody.
It's very suspicious.
All great points from Tim and from Hotep. Now, I've had my disagreements with Tim Pool. In fact, I made a video the other day with Tim Pool trying to make the point like there's this fake moral outrage from the right over the whole Nick Fuentes platforming, because supposedly we don't get outraged because leftist platforms, serial killers, all that sort of other stuff, because we know that everyone knows that being a serial killer is wrong. It's a little bit of a stretch, right? We know that it's morally wrong. So therefore, we do call it out, and therefore we go, well, yes, most people, if you've got a brain on you, can see that that's wrong. And we want to get into the brain of a serial killer. Why did that person do it? It doesn't mean that we're going to go out there and we're going to become serial killers. However, when it comes to Nick Fuentes, there are people that are very vulnerable. And I'm not saying that it can't also happen with serial killers, because there can be very vulnerable people that may watch as well. So you've got to be careful. But then again, you're not really responsible, are you, for what a person says or how a person's mental state is. If that's the case, then we just shouldn't show anything on TV. It's just like, it's ridiculous to think that what we show is going to really change the landscape all the time, right? I think we just need to have better mental health overall. Like, we just need to have brains about us, but we're losing that. So, but when it comes down to Nick Fuentes, like I said, we have these very vulnerable minds that do end up believing what Nick is saying. And that is dangerous, because then they try and force us to go from what conservatism actually is and have morals and standings and all that sort of other stuff, to then going to the alt-right, which is where Nick is, this new version of conservatism. So yes, there is this, it's not fake, it's very real. That's what I was disagreeing with Tim about. And him having a go at Joel Berry, who's fought for America. It's disgusting to have someone like Nick. You may disagree with all the stuff that he says. You can say that it's horrible, it's hateful, but why platform him? I understand, believe it or not, I understand more about platforming a serial killer and asking them questions, trying to get into their brain, more than I do platforming someone like Nick, because we know exactly where he stands. He's never been shy about what he's been saying. Someone that has killed multiple people, you don't necessarily know why they did it. Why they did it was horrible, but why did they do it? Like, I want to actually know. I'm curious. And for someone like myself, I would never go out there and commit the same atrocities, because it also stands as a warning. Don't do it. Or otherwise you'll end up like this crazy person that is in a prison cell. You got caught. Whereas Nick, on the other hand, you'll end up like him, being a hateful, bigoted racist. And yes, I'm using those terms correctly, because he hates women. He is a Hitler lover, a Holocaust denier, a Stalin apologist as well. The list goes on. So why in the world do you want that in conservatism and prop him up and say like he's good? We're not propping people on the left into the serial killer. We're not propping them up and saying it's good. We know it's bad. Whereas Nick, everyone's going, oh, he's good. There's a big difference there. Anyway, have a watch of this clip. This is in response to why nobody in Turning Point has had the balls to call out Candace Owens. Have a watch.
I have met a lot of people. I've been talking to some, I'm done being diplomatic. I've been saying that for a while. I've been talking to a handful of people in and around Turning Point, and particularly about things Candace has been saying, and nobody has the balls to speak out and do anything.
Yeah.
When Megyn Kelly was on stage with Ben Shapiro and he said that Candace claimed that Erica murdered Charlie Kirk, Megyn Kelly immediately said, well, I don't watch Candace. I have no idea that she said something like that. And the important thing you got to consider, I criticize Candace Owens. I also think she's very good and very smart on a lot of things too. I'm trying to call it like I see it, but on this, I think this is absolutely this is BS, and I think she knows it's BS. I believe Megyn Kelly said what she said because she's afraid of offending Candace Owens' audience and Candace herself, because Candace is powerful with 7 million followers on one platform, 10 on another, getting millions of views per episode. I have no such fears or concerns, and I've talked to a lot of people in and around Turning Point that will tell you explicitly they are reeling from what she is doing. She is causing strife inside and outside of and around Turning Point, but they're all too cowardly to say anything because her audience is big and they fear they'll make it worse. And I'm like, yeah, you probably would. But I'll tell you this, sitting back and letting her do 2 months of shows where she's now insinuating they're trying to assassinate her and the French killed Charlie and just saying these things, which are just the craziest things imaginable. Look, is this really where the right wants to go? Because I got to be honest with you, I'm not interested in being part of a movement that won't speak out against this stuff. And I'm going to say this too, okay? Tucker can interview whoever he wants. I will defend. We had this big debate on last Friday, and all of these, I guess, I don't know what faction you call this. Who are these guys, the conservative side, that hate Nick? You know what I mean?
That hate Nick?
Yeah, the people who are saying
Christian conservatives?
No, it's
Establishment, right?
I guess. You got the Babylon Bee guys. I'm a fan of the Babylon Bee. I like those guys, but they're very much we will not tolerate these people on the right who are bad, but they'll also they'll very much tolerate progressives who've done things worse.
Yeah. Okay.
I defended Tucker Carlson's right to interview anybody. I think Tucker's great. I disagree with him on a lot of things. I think Nick is absolutely abhorrent on a lot of things, the Hitler stuff he said. But I also see there's reasons why young people are following him. I think Candace is right on a lot of things. But there are too many people that are just too scared to speak out and call it out. I'm hearing behind the scenes people saying, well, we can't have infighting right now. It's getting worse. It's getting bad. And I'm like, dude, if you guys want to sit back and just let this happen to the conservative movement, by all means, I'm not interested. You know what I mean? I'll go live in a van down by the river. I'll make videos and do commentary on the things that I think are true. But Megyn Kelly then came out and she was like, I reviewed after what Ben said, and that was not true. And it's like, listen, any reasonable person can see what Candace is saying and see the implication that either Erica is completely ignorant to the assassins around her who murdered her husband or was in some way knowledgeable or involved in what was going on. The idea that she doesn't know she's saying this is silly. And again, I'm going to say this. I doubt she'll respond to this. She doesn't need to. She's got a bigger show, right? But starting off a post about how you've confirmed at the White House receipt that they're trying to murder you and our show will be off the air absolutely is an intent to imply I'm going into hiding, even though it's actually just Thanksgiving.
Correct.
Tim Pool thinks it's BS. This whole Candace Owens scheme. He can see it. He knows it's BS. Hotep knows it's BS. There's been quite a few people that know that it's complete and utter BS. In fact, I know that it's BS. And I think it's quite interesting in the last video they were making, who has stood to profit the most from Charlie's death? Candace. Simple. She's not donating any of the funds. She's keeping all the money that she's made. Millions of dollars, more than likely. And you know why that is? Because she's facing a very dangerous lawsuit at the moment. A very dangerous one. She recently, the 3rd time, filed to dismiss the lawsuit. No one's talking about that. So people are actually afraid in Turning Point because they know the firestorm that Candace Owens is causing. So if you really did care about Charlie and you really were friends with him, Why throw his name through the mud like you are? See, Charlie's real friends, like Frank Turek, for example, they've been going around and doing talks and speaking quite highly of Charlie and criticizing Candace because she's doing harm. They're receiving death threats, man. And now Candace wants to play the victim of the whole thing. But unless Turning Point grows a spine and says enough is enough, Candace, stop. She's going to continue and make it even worse. And like I said in the last video that I made about this, Candace is that crazy person that would attempt to fake an assassination attempt. She is that crazy. And I hope that she doesn't try it. I really do hope she doesn't do it, because she is that woman that cried wolf many times over. And if Tim can see it, and he's sick and tired of it, like, I may not agree with Tim on a lot of stuff, but this one in particular, I think he's hit the nail on the head because he's very much in line with what I've been saying. I'm not scared. I've been making video after video, one, sometimes two, sometimes three a day, about this mad woman. Because the more you make and the more people start calling her out, the better it will be. Because more people will start realizing and catching on that she's full of it. And I hope that actually happens. Sick of grifters. Anyway, that was one of them. So here's the final one. Goes for about 4 minutes and we'll end on this. So all this assumptive reasoning is followed by plausible deniability. So she can just wipe her hands clean and go, did nothing. I didn't say that. Not at all. Have a watch.
The big story. We'll start with a post from Candace Owens, who's got 6.5 million views on this post as of this morning with 17,000 retweets, saying our show will be off the air this week. As an update, both the White House and our counterterrorism agencies have confirmed receipt of what I reported publicly. Emmanuel Macron attempted to organize my assassination, per a source close to the first couple. Also, I will again state that the French legionnaires were involved in Charlie Kirk's assassination, but they did not act alone. For all of you who doubted my claims, you can now look to the President of the United States and our intelligence communities to issue a statement to confirm whether I am telling the truth. I'm just going to start right off the bat and say it. And you know, I recognize there is a challenge in covering a story like this and trying to break these things down and be honest, because there are faithful individuals to her and her audience who trust her. And if you approach someone outside of your group as an enemy or at least as an other, they will immediately ignore you. So the first thing I will say is you learn this working for nonprofits, any kind of sales. Rapport is the first and most important thing you have to do to convince someone. However, I will say this to you, my friends. I am not here to try and trick you into believing something. I am going to say it as is. And if people don't want to hear that, that's just too bad. You don't got to listen to me. The first thing I'm going to point out that starting the post off with our show will be off the air this week, followed up by the White House has confirmed receipt of what I reported, the assassination attempt. This is we call this in social engineering, assumptive reasoning, manipulation 101. It is when you combine, and you guys have heard me talk about this all the time. It's when you combine two unrelated statements to make it seem like they are related. The news does this, the corporate press does this all the time. So you get the point. Starting off, I have contacted the White House. They have confirmed receipt of the assassination plot against me with our shows off the air. What I have already heard from people, they believe she's taking her show off the air this week because she fears she's going to be assassinated. She's lying low. That was the assumption she was trying to create with the post. Now, this also creates plausible deniability where she will then say, I never said that. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to tell you this right now. As, 15 years ago, I'm hanging out at hackerspaces. The school of hacking that I was very much involved in is called social engineering. which is basically human hacking. Almost all of the hacking that you've heard of, like a major hack occurred and the grid went down, was not computer code, computer manipulation. It is manipulation of people. For example, what you do is you call an office, and don't do this, by the way, but this is one of the things they do. You call an office and say, hey, this is Jim down in IT. We're doing some repairs. Is this Janice? And she'll be like, yes. Like, I need you to do me a favor because we're trying to fix the network. Is there a black box next to your computer? It is. You see the wire? Is there a yellow wire coming out? Okay. Can you read the numbers off the back of that? And they go, sure. What does that matter? And then they've just given you access to the entire network. They've given you the passwords, all of these things. This is what Candace is doing. It's intended to create assumptive reasoning followed by plausible deniability. There's no reason to make this post. Followed by I can confirm receipt of what I reported publicly. For many people who don't understand, it sounds like the White House is confirming in some capacity that what she's saying is true. What she's actually saying is that she got a read on a text message. She texted someone, hey, they're trying to kill me, and it said read, and she goes, I got confirmed receipt from the White House. It's all manipulative language. Saying the French Legionnaires are involved in Charlie Kirk's assassination, I'm going to go ahead and say this. I have no problem saying it. I absolutely might be wrong. Candace may be right about everything. I think she's very intelligent. I think she knows what she's doing. And this could all be true. But I would be willing to bet, let's just call it a handsome sum of money, that what she's saying is just completely false.
When Tim Pool gets it right, he gets it right. He knows it's assumptive reasoning, right? It's a psychological tactic. And I've spoken about it a number of times too. I can see through Candace quite easily. And it's like, I don't know if you guys remember, but not that long ago, I've made several videos now of it doesn't take much at all. You listen to it for more than 10 seconds, or even you piece together things that she said in the past, and it doesn't corroborate. Doesn't make any sense. It's all over the place. There's no evidence at all. And when there is no consistency, the only consistent thing she's been good at is lying. It creates that plausible deniability aspect of, I'll accuse you and people will have their assumption, and then she'll go, I didn't say that, even though she did, and she'll allude to it. It's the whole Erica Kirk thing. When Ben Shapiro pointed out to Megyn Kelly that Candace has been accusing Erica Kirk. And then Megyn Kelly goes, oh, but she didn't say that. Which immediately I was going, Megyn Kelly, you're dumb. Because if you can't see it and you are supposed to be a smart lawyer, what's going on? You didn't understand the assumptive reasoning, her alluding to something. I didn't get that. But yet somehow Tim Pool can. Makes you think, doesn't it? Even more. Why? So I'm glad that Tim Pool got this one right. I'm glad that he did. Glad that Hotep got it right too. And I'm sure that many of you watching also get it right. And if you're a fan of Candace, ask yourself why. Anyway, that's enough from me, but you guys take care, be blessed, and I'll see you all in the next video.